And thank you to IESA for giving me this opportunity to be a part of the summit. I actually am here both as President of Intel India as well as a member of IESA EC, so it's a double honor for me. So it was curious to me to hear about the somewhat controversial discussion about make in India, make for India, make for the world. And so I'll obviously get more into this. I just want to start by saying that when I say make for India, make for world, I mean as inclusive, make for India and make for the world. I want to start actually by talking about two environmental phenomena that we are in the middle of. I read the book World Order by Henry Kissinger recently, and there is a whole section that he has donated to the technology, science and technology phenomenon that we are now a part of. And basically he says that if you go back to the medieval period, the dominant belief then was religion. And if you look at Enlightenment, the dominant belief was reason. In the 19th and 20th centuries, it was nationalism. And today, it is science and technology. And he goes on to say that science and technology are today transcending all cultural constraints in a way that we have not seen before. You know, we all know that devices have become ubiquitous. And what is interesting is that this ubiquity of devices has created this virtuous cycle that is essentially feeding on itself. So the more devices that we have out there, the more demand for services. The more demand for services, the more power in the data centers. And the more power we have in the data centers, the more we are able to support services of all kinds and devices of all kinds. The outcome of this virtuous cycle is what we are currently seeing. Transactions in staggering numbers, connectivity of a kind that continues to defy all expectations, and mobility that we haven't begun to see in terms of possibilities. So what is behind this? Well, at its very foundation, it is science. It is the semiconductor transistor and what it is making possible. So Gordon Moore's law has resulted in transistors that are capable of spanning performance and power at all ends. So we today in data centers see transistors that are performance hungry, and in devices we see SoCs that are on the strictest of power diets, and everything in between. Moore's law is also making possible this reduction in cost per transistor. The cost per transistor is a product of wafer cost and the area that the transistor is consuming. Area scaling benefits from Moore's law has reduced the cost per transistor so that today we have more powerful, power efficient, and affordable transistors increasingly as we move forward. This economics is driving new usages of all kinds. It is compelling, and we don't see an end to it. So as the single core has been replaced by multi-core transistors, we are able to bring forward all kinds of usages to the average consumer. Now let's look at India. India is in an evolution. The last 2 decades where we saw essentially IT giants, the corporate IT world, making itself the calling card of India, that era has slowly but definitely given way to a phenomenon that is now focused on startups and innovation, fueled, of course, by the fact that we've got a population in India that may not be literate, but is digitally very literate. We see this unfold increasingly as we look at what is happening in the private segment. So we've got Indian companies, Indian startups joining global companies and bringing new products and services, not just to customers, in fact, not necessarily to customers outside India, but to address the needs of Indian consumers. That is on the micro side. On the macro side, we are basically seeing an emerging focus on a holistic ecosystem. There was a time that it was just services, and like somebody in the panel discussion right before this had said, that is because it did not need much investment in terms of infrastructure. The cost barrier was low. But today, because of many reasons, such as the staggering import bill, the need to create jobs, and so on and so forth, we are beginning to see a focus on the part of the ecosystem that we had not looked at up until now. So in this backdrop, if we look at what would it take to make for India and make for the world, we essentially find ourselves looking at 3 key imperatives. The first one is demand, local demand. The second is solutions, solutions that are unique to Indian requirements. And the third is global competitiveness. Now again, I want to remind ourselves, we are talking about these 3 vectors against the backdrop of a computing TAM that shows no end. So today, we've got 500 million units out there, and a continued growth fueled now by not just mobile devices, but IoT and wearables. So let's look at what it will take to accelerate local demand. The government in India is going to be a key player. It is a key player both in terms of creating demand and enabling demand. As the government starts implementing things like e-governance, it will create its own massive dosage of demand. And then to that, as we complete the building blocks that we have already begun to see, like broadband penetration, the government will be able to enable more demand than we currently see. Enterprise has been a bit of a laggard in India. We haven't seen enterprise adopt technology. But as the government puts these building blocks in place, enterprise, both small and medium-sized enterprises as well as large enterprises, should begin to adopt technology because it's going to make economic sense. And if you look at something like IoT as a technology, you now have coming to the enterprise the kind of technology benefits that has come to consumers now for almost a decade. It is very interesting that in the last decade or so, consumer technology and adoption of technology has outstripped the enterprise. But IoT is a technology that is targeted at the industry and can make the difference in terms of enterprise catching up. The consumer in India is already well on its way in terms of embracing technology, and we see that phenomenon continue as affluence in India increases and as the price point of devices continue to fall. Let's now take a look at solutions and how we can apply that in India. If you look at technology today, the solutions that are coming out into the market are beginning to achieve this vision that Mr. Mark Weiser, who was the chief scientist at Xerox, had, which is that the most profound technologies are those that disappear. They weave themselves into the future of everyday life until they are indistinguishable from it. I want to share with you a video that demonstrates the power of the Internet of Things and how IoT is capable of changing the way we live and the way we work.